I will be honest about the last folk festival. Overall, it wasn't as bad as it had been previously. There were still some things that made the windows rattle and the floors vibrate. But overall, the major
So
problem.
we had a funk band that performed on Traeger Green, which is loud and lots of bass. That was one, like one set during the weekend. So one, whatever that is, 69-minute period. We had a funk band. We also had a mariachi band, which is very loud because it's such a big band with brass instruments and percussion. Also performed it, and they were measured, and in those cases, it still revealed that the amount of sound that got to the neighborhood was just very slightly higher than background noise from.
Well, there's two problems with that. One, his background noise number's too high, and I can verify that at any time. And two, he did not evaluate bass.
What do you mean?
He was sitting at that one place, and he was close to the road, Belvedere, and he was getting the car noise.
But don't you get that all the time?
Not if you're standing away from the cars.
But I thought this location was just west of the Belvedere.
Just west of Belvedere. We don't know exactly where he put it, but I suspect that it was right next to the road.
I think Bill's question was, aren't we talking about tracking the noise from Traeger Green right next to Belvedere?
Yes, and he says the background noise is 60, 63, and I say the background noise, which I can go right now, is 59, 58, 57. At night, I can get down to 55.
But there's another problem too, and that is like with Friday cheers. Every hour as the people get drunker, the volume goes up, way up. And so whenever it ends, 9:30 or whatever, you're going pretty loud, and then of course the drunks all come over to get in their cars. So it's a never-ending cycle.
Yeah.
It does not make us want to love you.
Well, can we at least agree that we need to have some sort of a standard in the proffers rather than referencing the city ordinance? I think we've heard from the police that it's not really enforceable. And there are issues with that. So simply referring to the sound ordinance saying we'll do that is really not going to solve the problem here. I don't know if we're going to be capable in this zoning case to solve the whole entire city noise ordinance problem. But we do have a system that has been recommended by a committee that the police seem to be comfortable with, that except for basically the mayor's blocking it and and no council member actually saying, yes, I want to be the one with my name on that noise ordinance battle, would in fact probably be the noise ordinance. And so it seemed like to me that's the kind of thing that we perhaps can start with. And at least agreeing today that we need to have some sort of a standard in here that we can agree upon as opposed to just referencing the noise ordinance. I mean, that's a critical sort of sort of separation.
I don't think I think that's a good summary. The question is the standard and where you measure it. So that's what we probably need.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to agree on that.
Yeah, I think there's too much noise, and Jack does not want to lower the noise at all. So that's a period of, I mean, we're not gonna. I mean, there's no agreement.
But have we seen this?
In Charlottesville, the downtown pavilion, the standard is 90 dB.
They don't have. It's not near residents.
It is.
Yes, it
There are
is.
lots of residents downtown
It's all the lofts
Charlottesville.
that you
They're all over the
within
place.
Yeah.
That's why they have a noise standard. It's
Well, Jack,
90.
why don't we at least look at the lieutenant's standards? I say it joking because I don't think it's his, but the one.
The ones that had been reviewed by the police department.
Yeah, that would be
Fair.
more appropriate, is what I'd say.
And had been recommended by this committee of folks of noise experts.
Those were not written for stadium purposes. Those were written for residential areas that were, that have people close next to each other. We would want a higher standard for an outdoor concert. These new ones you can't live with. You can't have a concert then.
The new ones, we could live with that.
And there's a way we wrote in the ordinance a way to get around those.
We'll
And that's,
Can you submit whatever that is
Yeah.
to them for their review?
but it's the same thing you brought up yesterday.
Okay.
It's the special event.
Well, what I hear is, Bill says that they're willing at least to look at it.
Okay.
So
Oh,
let's
yeah,
make sure we
sure.
get it to them and then have them take a look at it.
Yeah.
Okay. Bill, really quickly, while I have the police here, have you discussed with the police your event management plan? Since they're the ones who are gonna be signing off on it. I mean, has anybody tried it yet? It's been tested? Has anybody been brought in to discuss it?
Yeah, I think what has happened is that for these type of events, Jack has a process where he submits things to the police, but it's not as formalized as this. And this would be a much more comprehensive plan of when we go have it, where we go have it, just the details and what roads. One thing that, the signage, the roads and those type of things, it is what, you've seen it, so it's, I think it's fairly inclusive.
So what we do now, we meet with the police before every major event.
Okay,
And we talk about the event, and we focus mostly on security and traffic control.
yeah,
And the police then tell us how many people we must have, how many security people we must have to staff that event. Yeah, and it's not a formal submission and approval, it's a discussion at a meeting that involves RMC, our private security firm, where we agree. And if the police say that they want 18 officers at this event because they anticipate this crowd size in this type of concert, in this type of audience, that's how many we have, even if we only want to pay for 10. And if they say the number's 18, it's 18. So what the event management plan is proposing to do is to formalize that, broaden the scope of what we go to them with, that includes parking and traffic and other impacts beyond just securing our event on our property. And having them either agree or not agree or direct us to do certain things that we may not have wanted to do or planned to do, but if they tell us that 18 is not enough, it needs to be 25 officers, and if they tell us that they think they're going to be big impacts in Oregon Hill, so they want a tow truck on site and they want 3 officers roving, writing tickets and towing, we'll just do whatever they tell us to do. And you will have input in that process because you will receive our proposed plan at the same time that they receive it. We generally meet with the police well in advance of these events. So we're just trying to at least address as many of those impacts as we can. So that so that we don't have as big a problem as we.
oh, I understand
have.
completely, no, we're working on a document to respond to the document you sent us about the event management. We're tweaking it a little bit. 30 days was not enough time. ONA only meets once a month, so whenever you turn it into the police, like 45 days, 60 days, I wanted you to send it to me at the same time. I also wanted to know who the point person was so that I would know who I'd be emailing to say, this is what we think needs to be done.
The
This
point
works,
person
this
within
doesn't
the
work.
city, the point person within the city.
Yeah, or the police department or whoever. Like I said, I'm not disagreeing. I think the event management plan is doable. I just
Want
was
more detail.
discussing details.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I think, in concept, a very good idea, because every event is a little different.
Right.
And so making reasonable changes between events is important, and having a process to do that. I think that it'd be important for the neighbors to have certain minimums based upon, the way you've described it, major event versus event. But having pretty much everything else sort of dealt with on a case-by-case basis works. I like your idea about submitting it to us the same time you submit it to the police, and that way they're reviewing it, we're reviewing it, we can engage, that kind of thing. I mean, in concept, I think it's wonderful. I mean, we may come back and say, well, we need to address these other issues that are left out of what you put in here, but and maybe we may tweak the timing and things like that. But we like the idea. I guess to go back to Jennifer's question is, this is the kind of thing that I think I mentioned in our last meeting. I mean, in some localities they call it a large crowd permit or a special events permit or things like that. The city has a special events permit process for special events on public property. We're not saying that process is exactly what we need to do here, But are you all familiar with that process and have considered maybe basing your special events thing on that in part? I mean, because we're looking at that thinking, it's actually fairly comprehensive.
Right here if you need to see it.
It's fairly comprehensive and it's on the city's website, and I haven't gone and looked at the source document that's underneath it, and we've just seen the part on the internet, but that seemed like to me a little more inclusive as far as the issues that they're concerned about. But we do agree that special process for y'all makes sense, and certainly the event management plan and concept seems like a good place for us to work together.
Is that done on a case-by-case basis, and do you have to secure the permit to do the project?
Yes.
Here, let me pass it over to you. I got another copy.
It's got
It's on
criteria
their
that are
website.
somewhat similar to the criteria that have been put in here. For example, 300 or more people, or amplified sound, or it's been publicly advertised, or stuff is for sale there. So pretty much everything that you're really talking about down there would be covered under these regulations. We understand that these regulations may or may not apply to you. We're kind of unclear as to why. But we're not opposed to the idea of setting up a special process for y'all if that's what y'all already have and that's what y'all are comfortable with. But this seems to give us sort of room to discuss some of the things that are in there that are not in your proposal.
Yeah.
And, and again, what I said earlier, we're happy to be treated just like everybody else in general, as long as it's something enforceable. And another thing on that, and I don't want to get away from noise either, but I do need to go in just a minute. I mean, on the parking, I think the neighborhood's idea on parking is signage is great, but we would really like any kind of signage to be backed up by a special regulation from the city. Special regulations are adopted all the time for leaf removal, for church parking, for tour buses to park in front of the Omni, for a bunch of other things. And so we love the idea of signage, but like anyone else, we like the signs to be enforceable. And we do know the city has processes in place to make things enforceable, and so that'd be our request, is that the signage be accompanied with a special regulation that would protect the neighbors.
Because that's the thing, I think Parker had brought this up, and he said that wherever it is, remember Parker's the one who said that that's what they do, City Stadium, but it's not enforceable. And so what you're saying is,
Just make it enforceable.
So explain that more. What special regulation, what is that?
A special regulation, as my understanding, is something that's adopted, especially within the city, for a parking restriction during certain times. It might be, we're coming through for leaf removal, and so therefore they put the, you've seen
So it's a
signs
temporary
on-
sign.
Yeah, it's a temporary sign, and it basically says, no parking these hours. Ours would say, resident parking only during events, this kind of thing.
Right.
Would it be more difficult than a no parking at all sign to enforce? Sure, but it's not like it couldn't be enforced.
And that could be, a towing restriction could accompany that special regulation?
Right, that's the idea.
Whereas now it's difficult to get it to tow? Is that
Well,
understanding?
Can't tow
So
it.
some showing should be happening anyway because of parking in front of blocking driveways and in front of fire hydrants and things like that. So sometimes should be happening right now, but that's the idea, is to try to get some sort of a special regulation that would be enforceable during events, because that's, in addition to the noise, that's the other thing that I hear most complaints about from the neighbors, really, is the parking issues.
but you would want to be temporary, not permanent. So that, we were envisioning these signs being permanent, for riverfront events, but, however you want to get there is fine.
I do believe it's like some of the churches around here have permanent signage that say no parking during church events. I'm assuming, since we've discussed church events as being enforceable under the special regulations, it would work that way too.
It would be enforceable, it would not be.
I would assume it would be. I know the Sacred Heart has signs all over BCU that say no parking during church activities. And it seems to work.
There's
I'm
one right
assuming
out here.
they're enforceable.
There's one right out here.
Yeah, we press the
Yeah.
park right next to it.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess our issue is not so much with the sign. We like permanent signs, maybe permanent signs with some temporary signs, if it's a major event, and it's a really big one, perhaps might be called for. But just backing it up with something that's enforceable is the request, and we're happy to work with you on that.
And so is that a traffic engineering issue or is that a police issue? Who do we get to agree with this.
Well, I mean, it'd be part of your event management plan. You've already talked in here about a traffic plan and things like that. Parking should be, I think is
I
already.
mean, permanent signage, who approves the signage?
Signage,
That's
there.
gonna
well,
lead
I
to
mean,
DPW, I
Department-
imagine.
I was gonna say Department of Public Works does signage, but I assume for special regulation, you'd have to ask Parker to put something in.
Okay, Lieutenant, you said who you think that does the signage
Sorry.
authority in the city?
DPW.
DPW, oh, well, that may be.
Are you familiar with what I'm talking about, special regulations?
Not, I'm very familiar with the terms and whatnot, but the actual enforcement of it, I am not.
Okay.
Well, that may be, and if you think about it, they would, the police department would be the DPW.
The Department of Public Works.
Yeah.
Well, I do know that if I leave my car on Monument Avenue in front of First Baptist Church later than 2 p.m., folks have been known to be towed.
Yeah.
So I know there is some enforcement of that at some
Somewhere,
level by someone.
somebody's.
So I hadn't had one personally, and usually it has to be by 4 p.m. before they actually start towing anybody, honestly. But
He speaks with experience here, huh?
no confessions. Well, I do have to go. Thank
Well,
y'all
let's
very
help
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Okay. Well, we
Thank
can, okay, I brought that up because I think that's, as one of y'all said, the two major complaints. I think Mr. McRoberts said the sound and the
Parking.
and the parking. And so we'll try to come back to you with something quickly on that.
Do we have anything scheduled for getting back together and going through all of the document that you had sent over? If not, then I think we ought to try to find some time
Our
that we
group
can.
needs to make plans to get together to discuss the information and the suggestions that Andrew sent us to tweak the document that you sent us. And that's as far as I had gotten.
Okay, I just want to make sure I don't miss something.
No, I,
We're meeting
I'm
next
reading
Tuesday,
every other
aren't we?
email on
We're meeting
average.
next Tuesday anyway.
Yeah, I'm at the meeting next Tuesday.
well, I think,
Lieutenant, if you want to bail out, you can.
Okay. I'm interested.
I think
I didn't know if
it's,
you needed to be in there.
as soon as y'all can get back on that, it would be helpful, because we're beginning to feel the need to kind of file that case and so
Yeah.
forth, and we don't want to do that until we've either got an agreement or we know we're not gonna have an agreement and move on. There were a couple of other items, if you don't mind, in that respect, that I look back, the things that we had not put in, and that some things that y'all suggested, and Jack, I'll run these by you simultaneously. Venture Richmond to maintain river access to the public through Tredegar Green property.
What
The-
number is that?
It's not, I'm sorry, this is on the document
It's our
that,
list.
Yeah,
Oh,
from y'all's list.
oh, okay.
And I'm trying, and then the historic sign, these were things they requested that I had not put in, because I wanted to
I
make.
mean, there's access across the property year-round, however, there could be an event that is ticketed where the site would be fenced off.
yeah, and we had said we really
There's
didn't
also
have any
fencing required.
objection to that. We wanted to either include that in your total number of events for the year, or we wanted you to come back to us with, some number, say, we're gonna have 5 ticketed events a year. And that's all we were requesting for that.
Okay.
Yeah, we were just going to include ticket events within the total for the year.
Yeah,
Would include
that
including
worked
ticket
with
events.
us.
Fencing is also required for ABC purposes sometimes.
Other major one there is the, as mentioned before the meeting, the zoning that you're requesting has a 95-foot building height, and that's right in front of the war memorial. It's also the view shed from the overlook, so
And the
that's why we
canal.
had in there no
Yeah.
permanent structures, and we were willing to, there was an exception. Jack said, well, we need to put footings in or something,
Stay.
we're willing to accept exceptions to that if you want to put what structures you want exception to. But you can see from our point of view, you could sell the property tomorrow.
Under
and,
current zoning,
The next,
we could build a condo right there today.
that's right. You could build a condo, or the next person could build a condo, even though you don't have intention.
We wanted, like I said, we had originally put down no permanent structures, but if you wanted to look down the road and consider something like permanent bathrooms or permanent stage, if you would come back to us with maybe some square footage and some height restrictions, or heights, we would definitely be willing to consider that too.
Okay.
So I'm sure the Bourbon market would be very much up in arms.
Yeah, well,
Just a blanket rezoning for,
Yeah, and we had, I reckon it's one of those things, that's so, we had never intended to even thought about it, so we hadn't thought about prohibiting it. So,
Right.
but I can understand your perspective. Well, why don't I do this? Why don't Jack and Preston and I get together right after this and see if we got some other things, and try to get your meeting next Tuesday.
That's the next ONA meeting, yes.
That's the big meeting.
Yeah, that's just a general big monthly ONA meeting.
When would be the good time? I'm like you, I wanna move it on.
Yeah.
If we can get you something, 2 weeks from today, then y'all can get set your group up to meet, your smaller group after that.
Yeah, 2 weeks, that'll give me time to go over what, Andrew just handed me something earlier this week, that'll give me time to go over what he's given me and get back to you with that,
That'd be good.
yeah. So, mostly tweaks and stuff to your event management plan.
Good.
the other one on our list was trash cleanup. You didn't include that in your management plan, but I assume you wouldn't be averse to, and trash cleanup of Riverside Park and,
Yeah,
Well, it's not an enforceable proffer because it's offsite.
yeah. This is the lawyer who's speaking. You can only, in the properties, you can only put in things that relate to the property itself.
Even if it emanates from that property?
well, you could put it in there even if it wasn't enforceable. I mean, your intention to do
The
it.
city
Hang on.
attorney might take me to task for that.
Your intention.
Yeah, hang on,
to-
guys. I was emailing, Parker was emailing me actually about the trash at the Overlook. Right now, I think he's trying to work with the Department of Parks and Rec to get more trash cans out there. He tells me, and I don't have any reason to disbelieve him, that the James River Park system gets over 1 million visitors a year.
Yeah.
So if Venture Richmond wanted to perhaps help Parker pressure Parks and Rec, I would consider that a good faith effort towards trash management.
About getting more trash cans.
Yeah, Overlook area especially, just because it is the gateway to Bell's Island and the North Side Trail, I think it's called over there. Yes. So yeah, if you wanted to work with the city to get more trash cans out in the Overlook area, I would consider.
You're talking about
That done.
the green type trash cans?
With the top
big-
in it and
yeah,
they go with
yeah.
Yeah,
Are you talking super cans?
Scott
No.
wants
No,
to
what are
be-
you talking about?
These are just ones that are
Standard.
sitting.
Just standard?
Yeah.
Scott wanted the big belly solar things, but I think they're like millions of dollars for each one. I'm exaggerating slightly, but I would talk to Parks and Rec about that, what they would be willing to put out there. But yeah, we do need more trash receptacles in that area.
Are they good at removing trash from the ones that are there?
Lynn?
Yes.
Do
They
do
come
it?
by a couple of times a week and pick it up.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
And they're very nice and they pick up all around it and do stuff like that.
I think it's mostly, seems to be just a matter of city budget and city will. So if you were wanting to work with Parker on that, I would appreciate it.
We will.
Mhm.
Yeah, Parker's
Yeah.
helping us all.
Yes, he is actually.
Okay, well, I'll get you something, if you can, any
I will
ideas?
be in touch with you shortly. I would like to meet with my
Right.
group to hammer out
The tweaks?
our responses, but yes,
Okay, well, thank y'all.
thank you.
Thanks for coming. Sorry for the last minute location. I didn't find out about this meeting until